Hi, welcome to the Sense Kaleidoscope podcast, where we attempt to change the narrative around autism. Today, we're joined in by Preeti and Ahana. Preeti is a mum of an individual on the autism spectrum, Ayush. Ayush has been with Sense Kaleidoscopes for close to a decade now. And hi, Preeti. Hi, Ahana. Preeti, thank you for joining us. As you know, I'm glad you've been following the podcast that Akshay and I have been hosting. Just wanted to get an idea, for starters, on your journey with Ayush. How did the diagnosis come about? Your personal journey through this, and then we'll move on to Ahana and her take on Ayush's journey thus far.
Sure, thank you for having us and letting us share this journey with you. So yes, Ayush's diagnosis was early. Started suspecting, short of his first birthday, that things were not going the way it was planned or the milestones were planned. He wasn't talking. He was very quiet. He would like to be on his own. Get stuck on TV, watching the TV or a certain program. He wouldn't respond when we called his name. So at one point, in fact, my husband thought he couldn't hear. So he snapped his finger and he reacted. So then he realized, no, it's not his hearing. So we've been warned that, things were we've spoken to friends who are pediatricians, etc. They were and we were in the midst of a transfer. My husband was at the Air Force. So we were moving from a small town to Bangalore. So they were once you get to Bangalore, get a proper diagnosis. And that's what.
How old was Ayush at that time?
So he was a year and 9 months when we got the official diagnosis in Bangalore. And by then we suspected that more or less, he was showing all signs of autism. And in those days, this is 2001, we had all heard about, I think the only reference to autism was the Rain Man, the movie. In fact, my husband did not even, he was surprised, what we were talking about. At least I had seen that movie, so kind of understood what was coming. And we didn't have Google access and access to much of literature. So, yeah, we saw the signs and we knew what was coming. And it was a shocker, obviously. You never expect such an extreme for anything. But I always say, I think when it happened, we had come to Bangalore. My husband was training to become a helicopter test pilot. And he actually just left two options on the table for me the moment the diagnosis happened. One was either to take it, run with it, and keep doing whatever's required, but on my own. And he does the course because it's a very intensive 1-year course where he will not be able to contribute in any way. Or he resigns, steps back, and we go back to the
Some
place
sort
we
of
came,
civilian
some sort of a small, town where he was posted before, and where we don't have any access to anything. Forget about even doctors. That's how it used to be in those days. So yeah, it didn't leave much of choice. So I took it on, and it's been eventful. I would say that it changed me as a person, and for the better. I would always say what I was in 2001 and what I am today, very different.
Yes, 25 years. I'm sure it has changed.
No, but happily, the changes are very welcome. I'm a very different person. I won't say it erased me. I think it made me who I am today. So, yeah.
Did you have a support system in Bangalore at that point?
I didn't have a support system in Bangalore, but I did have a support system, so to speak. My parents. I'll give them credit. They did not understand, but they were there with me. My father was also in the Air Force, still serving and rising up the ranks. And but my mother would call me every day. So my father was.
They were not in.
No, they were not in Bangalore. My dad was posted in Shillong, and my mom would call me every day on an STD. And in those days,
Those
most of STD, but every day it would be a 1-hour call. And I think that just kept me going because she would just call so that I could talk. And whenever she could be here, she was here. And I remember that time I used to go on a scooter, on a kinetic Honda, and she would come with me with these two kids and her sitting. And this is the lady who's got the best trappings in the Air Force and stuff, sitting on a little scooter with a helmet and following me wherever I would go, just to be there for me. So yes, they were my support system. And then slowly but surely, I always say people who understood stayed, who didn't understand but wanted to help stayed. Those who couldn't fell by the wayside. Well, it's okay. That's how it is. But over the years, I built up a very strong network of, I would say, friends, more so than family, who have stood by me till today. My son is welcome everywhere. They understand everything. I don't have to say why I'm going to be late, and it's not an excuse. They know that, and they know that if I'm saying I'm coming, I will be there. But the concessions are made without me ever having to explain, and I think that has really worked for us.
That's great. When did you decide to have Ahana, and did you kind of, I mean, you said, Ayush was about 1 year, 9 months when he was diagnosed. So then Ahana was already on the way.
Yeah, so I'd already had a Hana
Okay.
before. There was about a year. Yeah, there's a year and 9 months between the two. But she was already born. She was 8 months when we got his diagnosis. But I always say this: if I had known he was autistic and on the spectrum, I don't think I'd have had a second child.
Okay.
So yeah, because it takes a lot, and I always feel that growing up, she bore the brunt of, the compromises that you have to make as a mother.
As a sibling, as
Yeah,
as a-
I mean, I would say as a mother,
mom.
what I had to, this thing, I know what she went through. She's the mini mom. She's my part too. Like, she takes over where I, can't, or I am not available, and gives me that breathing space. So yeah, she is God given, thank God, because I did that. I don't think I'd have had a second child if I'd known he was autistic. No way.
Give us a little bit about his schooling journey. What
The
he
early
early
years.
was from an early intervention. You got to know when he was 1 year, 9 months. Ideal would have been 18 months, but great, like at least you got it at 1 year, 9 months. Most kids at that point in time were all being diagnosed about 3 years plus. So, given that I have been in this field for about 22 plus years, I realized that any child I saw back in the day was all like post 3 years, right? So if you got it at 1 year, 9 months, I mean, at least you had access to some sort of thinking in terms of intervention. Today, early intervention has really ramped up. Back then, there were only a few schools who kind of knew autism. It was a special school where all the neurodivergence was clubbed, and everybody was like, whether you had CP, MR, autism, everything was kind of clubbed, and you kind of figured life out. But I think given that, Bangalore that way has had some sort of an early intervention conversation from as early as Ayush was around, and has had, parents have had access to exclusive special educators / therapists who understand autism slightly better than, being under an umbrella per se. Yeah, so just give us an idea as to, like, I mean, was he comfortable in a school that he went to? Did you have to change too many schools? What are the traumas / challenges you faced through the way?
So yeah, I mean, when Ayush was diagnosed, it was very early, and we were lucky that way. We got him into early intervention that time itself. But back in 2001, like I said, Bangalore was the place. But then we also, and I'm speaking from experience, things were not all that what we have today
Is not what it
is
was.
not what it was 25 years ago. But still, I would say it was available. There were options available. So I did get him into early intervention. And thanks to the early intervention program that he went for, he was able to enroll in a school which was a mainstream, but, claimed they were inclusive. It helped work well for him the first year or so. But then, unfortunately, schools don't realize that they're dependent on the teacher. So if the special educator leaves, they don't have a backup plan. Then what happens? So when the next person comes in, he or she needs transition and
there's bonding, and
then the bonding, and then it doesn't work. And in the name of inclusion, if you're putting the child into a separate room and working, and you're bringing him out just for certain activities, I'm sorry, it's that's not, you can't call it, that's not, yeah, it's not inclusion. You're secluding the child. And the same thing happened when he went to mainstream schools that claim to have an inclusive setup. You charge me the fees for the whole year, the whole month, full fees, but you're keeping him only for half day, and you're taking special education fees. And because that, as parents, we are, vulnerable, you are taking advantage of, parents, and it is taking advantage. I'm going to call that out. And I think a lot of people have faced that. I faced it across schools. And then he's in one room, and you're calling it inclusive again. And if you can't handle a tantrum, then you are waiting for the mother or the father to come to ask, okay, this happened, what do you do? Or today the teacher hasn't come, can you step into class? There are times that I have sat in his class in the room and conducted sessions for him or worked on whatever this thing. And then I realized that even the curriculum, it's not defined. IEP, in the name of IEPs, and God, I mean, it's an alphabet soup. They have all these nomenclatures, but do you even follow these things? And then when she was also in school with him, you're calling her out to handle, oh, he had a tantrum, can you help? Or she will find, that he's walking around and there's nobody. What happened? They don't realize. And in fact, in one of the schools, he was locked in the room. So the teacher would go in. When she would finish, she would step out and lock the door from outside. And I had started working at that time to support, because again, that's another big thing. It's not cheap. Special education is not cheap. And my husband was still in the armed forces, and we know the salaries in the armed forces. And so my mom stepped in, and then she came home and she told me that, they're locking him in the room. So when I went to the school to have a conversation, they were like, what else do you expect? And I'm like,
This was at about age?
he was about 6.5. This was grade 1.
If I can backtrack a little bit, just want to take you, because there were some really interesting points that you're talking about, and I want to just kind of like do a deep dive if possible. The early intervention journey, how did it go for Ayush? Because we understand that the early intervention is the place where they put in some basic skill sets so that a child can go into a classroom. They call it school readiness, if I'm not wrong. Can you shed some light on how Ayush did that? I'm just trying to shift the lens.
Yes.
What happened developmentally for Ayush?
So see, Ayush, if you go by all the reports that were published and, sent out after the program completed, because it was like, for example, if you're doing school readiness, it was a 1-year program, all the boxes would be ticked. But I would see that happening on a one-on-one. I wouldn't see generalization.
There was
So,
no peer group.
There's no peer group. You're working one-on-one and saying, oh, great, he's sitting, he's doing this, he's writing, he's done it. Falana, you have a long list, checklist, and you're ticking it all off. But it's one-on-one.
But he managed it.
He managed it one-on-one. How is he going to manage it when he goes into a school?
So let's say that while he achieved the checklist, the core component that you think should have been addressed was, how does my child integrate into a group
Yes.
of children, which was not
That was
managed.
that was not managed. You're keeping him in a room and you're working with him. Yes, there are other kids also. But how is he able to manage when the teacher is looking at second child or a third child? Because no school is going to give him a one-on-one setup.
Correct.
That is not inclusion. If you're going to do one-on-one setup, it's not inclusion.
Correct.
Right? So that was where it was lacking. And then, I guess, in all fairness to these programs, they have a benchmark that within a year, so many children pass out of this program, or whatever you want to call it. I'm being very nice and polite about it. You push the child out. When I'm saying, no, I don't think he's ready, because I saw him when I took him to this inclusive school, he was feeling overwhelmed. Sitting in the room, he's not able to manage because some child is running, some child is, screaming, some child is...
To also spotlight Ayush, just so that we can bring Ayush into the conversation as a personality. Ayush has many sensory units. He is hypersensitive, and whether it's sound, light, touch, feel, I think we've seen all of that.
That's what. So how does he handle? Like even today, if a baby cries, we are in a restaurant, he's fine, everything is great, and a baby cried. You could see his face just change. This is a 27-year-old man sitting enjoying his meal, and suddenly you can see his face just crumbling.
And he loves being...
And he loves being out on a meal, and his sister was actually treating him to a birthday meal in one of his favorite restaurants. You could see his face just crumble. And I could see him getting agitated, and he was going on watching this baby, and I was like, Ayush, just okay, calm down. And luckily the parent took the baby out and he was okay, but he kept looking back. He has this thing. Now, this is 27. Imagine when he was 6 or 7. And you have children crying because it's a school and, they're all left home and come for the first time. They're crying. How is he going to manage?
How many numbers in the first school setup that he was in? Do you remember how many kids in the classroom?
So, see, he went to a Montessori setup first. Now, you know how the Montessori setup is. You'll have one teacher and you have an assistant teacher. There are about 10 to 15 in that class.
Okay.
Now imagine if all of them, and they're all in the same age group, all of them will have issues, separation anxiety, whatever, in all fairness to them. how does he handle that? Have you worked on that? Half the day, of the full time would go with him, trying to, because he's upset, some child is crying. One day wasted, second day wasted. So I feel when these intervention programs happen, you need to also equip the child to handle this. It's not, can he hold a pencil, can he write, can he sit for 10 minutes, can he do this? That's not the checklist.
Understand. What you're saying is that even after all that work, when the transition happens, we are bound to see regression because the child is going to go back and slip back.
And then what? There is no backup. There is no help after that. He's out.
So what happened with Ayush? I mean, the Montessori setup, I'm hearing, didn't work for him.
So it worked for him for the first year because the teacher was very well equipped to handle him, and she was managing. But then she left to get married. I mean, everyone has a life. But then whoever came after couldn't handle. And within
when I say couldn't handle, I feel like I want you to kind of expand a bit, because there are these associations with autism. When we say that a child with autism cannot be handled, most people associate it to the autism. But
So I'll be very fair. In those days, I think all the, I think special educators were more trained to handle learning disabilities. They weren't trained to handle autism.
right. I think that's very important. for us
That's
to
where
mention.
what I'm talking about. I mean, hats off to people who want to become special educators. It's amazing. It's not easy.
Correct.
I know as a parent, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do that. I mean, it was just impossible. But if I feel that, and if you look at the training, it is more for learning disabilities. It's not autism. They're not trained on how to deal with. Autism it's an umbrella. One child you cannot compare to the other child.
Correct.
Ayush's hypersensitivities were different from another child's. Now, if he's sensitive to sound like a crying, how are you going to mitigate that? For him to be able to sit and be productive. And Montessori setup is amazing. The equipment is amazing. In fact, Montessori, when it started, was for special needs children, not for the regular mainstream kids.
Primarily because of
Not the neurotypical, the way
play-
the work, the
play-based
play-based, and the way it is, and each child is allowed to explore. It's not like there is one way only to be followed. You can try different things to reach that solution,
Correct.
which was great. It's just, and people don't understand that autism is a different mind. That's all. It's it's not like, oh, this is a disease that is going to get cured. No, it's not. So that is why my problem was in these schools. And then I went find an Montessori has up to age 6 only. Then you have to move on to grade 1 in another school. So he had to move out eventually. And it was, he reached a point where he was sitting in one room. And if the special educator came, great. If she didn't come that day, then he was just playing in the sandpit. And he was left to play in the sandpit. The maid is watching. So that's it.
Are you saying that there was absolutely no program, no curriculum, no ideation of 1 month these concepts, next month these concepts? Was there no?
I only saw it in the initial 1 year. After I did not see. Because the frequency of the changeover that was happening, the teachers changing.
Let me come in here. Do you think that in this mainstream school setup, vis-a-vis the adult social structure, do you think inclusion actually can be achieved in a mainstream school? 1. 2 is, do you think people today in a social setup are more understanding / accepting, say in a restaurant or a movie theater or whatever it is? Are they less or more tolerant? And do you feel that inclusion can happen at all in a school setup? 1,
She's asked.
one,
I'm very pessimistic. You're asking me something which I'm very...
No, but Preeti, let me be very clear here. Yeah, I don't believe in inclusion.
Thank you.
Okay.
I was just going
I don't believe in it. I think the world is not kind enough for any kind of inclusion. They will be. I have always said you are okay to turn a blind eye to domestic violence. You are okay to turn a blind eye to a drunken brawl, but you will not turn a blind eye to a tantrum where the child is just flapping his hands, possibly not even vocalizing. Yeah, that is the world we live in, at least in this country or my little Bangalore or whatever I have seen of it. Yeah. But that is what, and I have a very pessimistic view, but I feel,
Let me
I feel, I think at large, I have been an advocate of trying to create inclusive societies. That is where I go, whether it's a restaurant or a movie theater, where I go and I take students on the spectrum to these to expose them to various social situations. They've been fairly okay. It has been better with adult social setups than it has been with schools. With schools, I find I'm hitting a roadblock. Everyone is catering to the smartest child still. Not the least lowest common denominator. That is not what we are catering to today. And I think, but just wanted your view on this.
So when we started our journey with autism versus what it is today, I would say yes, more tolerant. Inclusive, that's a myth. There's nothing called inclusivity. If any school claims they're inclusive, I beg to differ. I never faced it. In fact, I had to literally bang my head against the thing with the thing, take on people. In fact, I was told by the professionals in the field that I need to be a little less aggressive and I need to be a little less this thing, because you have to make sure that it's not just your child, you have to take care. Other children will not be accommodated. And I'm like, sorry, no one's standing up for my child. If I don't go and stand, it's hard-earned money that I'm spending. I mean, maybe you all have inheritances, etc., coming your way. Nothing is coming my way. At least I know that. I have to cater to my old age, my second child, and whatever else. I'm putting in hard-earned money. You're taking fees. What non-refundable deposit, refundable deposit in the name of our vulnerability, and you're giving me zilch. How am I supposed to keep quiet and take that? To a certain point. Okay, you can't handle my child, I'm pulling him out. At least have the decency that my child didn't even last 6 months in your school. Return that money. But no, I've been told, and in fact, I get calls from the professionals in this field saying, Preeti, please don't do this. Other parents will lose opportunity and all. And I'm like, really, seriously. So when you say inclusion, I've never seen it. But yes, I would give due credit to the people around me, certain restaurants that we frequent, purely because people were ready to learn. People have learned to adapt. One of our favorite restaurants, I'm not going to name it here, but everybody knows, and the joke goes around that I should get shares in this place. The moment I just called them, and I was just having a meltdown the other day, and I called them and I said, listen, I need a table. And the manager was so sweet. He's like, ma'am, just reach. The table will be there for you. And we walked in and the table was there. They took such good care of us. We celebrate all our birthdays and anniversaries there. They're so inclusive. No one stares. Ayush is flapping. Ayush loves to rock. He'll be moving up and down.
She's chucking the phone away. It's not working. I think it's true.
Yeah, one restaurant, he threw the phone, it landed in the duck pond, and we had to wait for an hour to divert his attention. And then they actually fished it out for me. Different story, it never worked again. But these kind of things. With that, I'll say, we have to just keep pushing. I have pushed. I know how much I have pushed. And that's how it's been accepted. But even today, you'll have people who stare. Even today, you'll have people who have passed a comment because Ayush is not aware and he'll just walk through. And he's 6 feet 1 inch, okay, 100 kgs. He just walks through people without realizing. And obviously, you'll have someone who will say, oh, you can't see or what, and what is this nonsense? And like, I don't even now react. Earlier, I would turn on and say, like, can you see that there's something, there's some issue off or something, but before you comment, now I couldn't be bothered. I mean, I would actually look back and I would just say, so sorry, and continue. Couldn't be bothered.
Preeti, can you take us back to what actually happened after 6.5? Because that's where you stopped. I wanted us to focus on the developmental journey. I mean, obviously, the reason you were doing all of these things is because you wanted to see development for him. And I also know that you've shifted quite a few spaces for Ayush. I want to understand why exactly you did that, what was working, what was not working. We'll speak about both of them. So can you take us from there?
So yeah, very early on in our journey with Ayush, I realized that there was no one championing him except me. And in all fairness to everybody around, things were new. Everybody was trying out new things, and I realized that it wasn't working when I moved him from the Montessori setup. It was time for him to move into the mainstream regular school because Montessori is only up to a certain age. Post that, grade 1, grade 2 has to be in a regular school or an inclusive school, so to speak. So our journey began at 6.5 with a regular international school that claimed to be inclusive.
Can I just come in there? Mm-hmm. Were there special schools at that point in time in Bangalore City? And if there were, yes, what did you know? Did you not know? So you didn't know of any?
No, I did not know of any. We were trying. In fact, we were thinking, would it be a better idea to move to Delhi, because there were schools there that were inclusive, who claimed to be inclusive, but just the thought of moving lock, stock, and barrel to another city and starting all over, exploring, finding the right fit for Ayush was just overwhelming and very daunting for us. And we decided to stick with Bangalore and see how it works.
So from what I understand is you didn't know of any special setup or any alternative setup.
Everything was very nascent. See, this is 2000 and what? 6 would be 2004, 2005.
I think the question here is that, were you focused on your son being in a mainstream school more, or were you open to having
Alternative setups.
an alternative setup which has an exclusive autism setup? I think early years, I also worked around the same time, and I found that there was like you said, like technically Montessori is supposed to be all the way up to university, that's the school of thought. Unfortunately, I mean, it stops at either kindergarten stage. I think nowadays people take it even all the way up to
now they do.
sixth grade.
Now they do.
But then what is the point if the child has already learned a certain way to learn, and then you're slapping them back with, a different school of thought, and they have to unlearn and relearn and all that. So that's traumatic even for a neurotypical.
Correct.
But I think the question here is, were you focused on having a mainstream integrated setup or an inclusive setup, so to speak, or were you open to having an exclusive setup just for Ayush?
See, like I said, my priority was Ayush. If there was a setup that would help him, which was exclusively for autism, I wouldn't have minded it at all. There wasn't. Like I said, everything was being explored. There were so many schools of thought. There were so many various therapies. So while he was going to these schools, he was also attending other therapies, which were just coming out, and I was trying everything, because it was, at that time, it was, try everything and see what works. Okay. Whether it was a diet control, whether it was, luckily no medication at that time. I was very anti-medication, and he wasn't showing any this thing where he needed medication. But I was ready to try everything. And if there were, inclusive, schools that just catered to autism and, worked around this thing, I would have been more than happy. Unfortunately, they weren't. And I was also trying to then look for something where in a mainstream setup, he would get the support that was required. That's where I went to these schools. And then I had to move out of this school because I found it wasn't working for him. And like I said, one of the principals of that school was joining another group of institutions and starting these flagship schools. And she invited us over to come and see. And when I met the person who was going to run the special needs department, I was very impressed with her credentials, and she seemed very invested in things. And it took off really well. And also Ahana was also joining mainstream. So I felt it was a great setup where both of them would, travel to school together. He would attend classes there. And the way things were framed, it was amazing the first few years. He was in an inclusive, at the same time an exclusive setup. When he needed to be pulled out, he was pulled out. When he was needed to be in a classroom setup, he was there. He took part in annual day functions. I mean, there is a very cute video of both Ayush and Ahana dancing in the grand finale. So I was very happy. Sports day, there were events where he would take part in if he wanted to. And
it was inclusive.
It was inclusive, and it was a great experiment. I was very happy with it. But unfortunately, like all great stories, this also fell through. The person, because everything, what I've realized is all this inclusivity is person specific. It's not institution specific. So if one person moves out, the whole system falls. And that's what happened.
It's leader specific.
Yeah, I won't say leader, I'm just going to say person specific, because now this person had personal issues or whatever it was, and she just left. And Ayush was left one fine day with nobody. And then whoever came in, the same scene, they would pull him out, and then slowly from an inclusive it became an exclusive setup. A separate classroom, a separate floor. I would come back and see him, he's thrown the notebook out, or the teacher, somebody standing and trying to retrieve notebooks from the window ledge, and all kinds of nonsense. And then the school, the whole lot whom I knew, the management and who understood inclusion, they all moved out. And the school ceased to be an inclusive school anymore. So they started another institution, and that's how I moved there. That was his last. So actually we moved 3 schools. That was his last. And there also, initially there was a curriculum, they were trying to follow stuff, include him, but again, the expectations don't match, people move on, it doesn't work. He was in grade 10 but doing nothing close to grade 10.
So let's look into when you're saying I'm listening to a lot of like he was in this group and then he's getting pulled out. He's in the group, he's getting pulled out. Why?
See, we need to understand that the current educational system is very traditional. Everything is paper and pen. Everything is written down. Everything is rote. And you're trying to teach a child who's on the spectrum to memorize everything, by heart everything. How does he learn? How are you catering to his learning needs?
And
You're teaching him mathematics. 2 plus 2 is 4. He's learning it on rote. He's not learning it because 2 plus 2 is 4. We will show him that, but whatever. But he's actually learning rote. Everything was rote.
By the time all this happened, don't you think like international schools kind of started coming into being, and was the so-called IB application oriented curriculum?
I'll be very honest, I couldn't afford those fees. I just couldn't afford those fees. By then, yes, a lot of it came in. Like I said, it went up till the age of 14. That's when he was already in other therapies. They were also not working, and I happened to read an article while waiting in the lobby to pick him up about Akshay and sense kaleidoscopes. That time it wasn't sense
Who
kaleidoscopes.
published you?
Friends of India, ties
So it
of
was
India.
talking about her, how she was doing this alternative methods and stuff. And I just, first time and the only time that I've ever looked at something and I've actually called the person. I would never, because by then I was really, really disgruntled, disappointed, whatever you want to call it. But this was the only article. I still remember I came home, I told Anil, and I don't know whether I mentioned it to her. And then we called Akshay and she said, why don't you come over? And we went across this 2013 December, I still remember. And she met us at her home with Ayush and she was like, okay. And I was like, I think he's more interested in computers and, I don't know whether he wants to go into mass media, digital media. I have no idea. This is beyond my scope.
He was also pen averse at that time.
Yes, he was totally pen averse. You give him paper and pen and he just loses shit. He hated it.
I remember doing his assessment back in the day when you dropped in at home, and he didn't. He just couldn't even look at the pen.
Yeah, so that's how through her I met you and you did his assessment.
Yeah, so fast forward, I think, to a couple of years, and that's Ayush's work, a person who was pen averse.
Anna, I think I want to bring you in at this point because while Preeti is able to give us a lot of detailing in the early years, I know that she started working. And since you were in school with him in those years, and if you want to tell us age, timelines, I'd really appreciate it. And what did you see happening with Ayush?
So we were in the same school, I think you said 3 schools you changed, right? So 2 schools, we were together. The first setup that was there and then the second setup that we moved to. So this would be, I would be about 6 to 7 years old and Ayush was about 8 or 9 years old. So from then up until the age of 14, we were together in the same school. But being together doesn't mean that we were in the same class at all times.
Understand?
So in the first setup, he was in a grade higher than mine. So I wouldn't keep an eye on him. I was just in the same hallway. But luckily, we had good friends in our bus. Because you know how kids get together on a bus. So we had good friends on the bus. And there was a really lovely boy who would keep an eye on him for me. And would keep me updated. And he became a very good a circle, I would say, for us. Any class they had together, he would make sure. So that was our little circle. And then in the next school that we went to, again, we were supposed to be in the same class, but that was never the case. He was in the resource room, and the resource room would be all colorful and decorated. And when you look at it, as a parent who's walking in, you would say, oh wow, my child has a setup. But that, like Mom said, there's no curriculum as such. There is no structure to the whole thing.
When did you understand that Ayush was going through an educational pattern that did not make sense? Because you were going through an educational pattern as well. So when did that hit you?
It hit me in the last school that we were in, when we were in the same classroom itself. Because he would only walk in during our breaks. So this would be snack break. Lunch break, he wouldn't be there because it was a half day, so he would go home. So he would only come into the classroom during snack break, which is about 15-20 minutes. And that's it. I would not see him otherwise. And I would just know that he's gone home because the resource room was nearby, and I would see that, okay, he's not there. So that was my understanding. Ki, "Okay, he's gone for the day." That's it.
What has been your, journey in terms of understanding your brother's condition?
Johnny, I mean,
Like, when did you kind of, like, I'm sure your mom told you or your father told you that, Ayush is different or has a condition. And, as a family, we will all support him. And we hope that you will also join in this journey of supporting him. But whatever.
to be very honest, I don't even recall this conversation. Okay. But I don't know if she did have a conversation with me. I don't remember it.
It was just very
I feel like I just came out and I'm like, yeah, that's it, done.
No, but I'm sure you had like other friends who had siblings who possibly went to similar classes or
And they're different from Ayush.
were different from Ayush.
But it never. So I think maybe because I was with Ayush from when we were a child, it never phased me. I think only when I got a little older, say 9, 10, is when I realized that, okay, there is something different. In my head, it was.
So are you saying for you, Ayush, you've accepted what I'm listening to, and correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm listening to is that you have accepted Ayush from day one just as he is.
Yeah.
And you were not expecting something else. You never went
never
and looked at somebody else and said that, okay, I wish I had that and not this.
Never. I never understood the difference.
Add here.
Yes,
So I think
please.
from very young, I mean, since his diagnosis, I made sure that we're not giving up on anything. Neither is she going to miss out, nor is he, nor us as a family. So we made sure that we went for movies. So there were times when Anil would sit inside the movie hall with her, and if Ayush was having a meltdown because of the noise or whatever overstimulated him, I would step out into the corridor and walk up and down with him till he calmed down, or Anil would step out. But we would go to the movie, and then we would go to restaurants, and we would go for, things. We would try everything to see what worked for him, whether it was the air show, because Anil's a pilot, and we would take him to see how that works for him. We did everything together as a family. So it was, like you said, very organic. It was okay for her. She just slipped into that and it was accepted. And our friends also were such, our circle is also till today such, that no one behaves differently with him. No one does anything different for him, around him or for him. It's all organically done, and we had just all slipped into this role. So I never did that with her, and I think that's where she's saying, like, for her it was...
I think that's a really important point.
And in fact,
being
in
able to
school-
live just normally. Like
In fact, in
able to be
school, I
honest.
think she was one of the, even when Ayush moved out, she used to be one of the champions for any of the other kids who had learning disability or whatever. And then she went on to become the school captain, etc. Our friend used to be the biggest champion around there for all these, for helping out the other kids.
Coming back to what you had asked, honestly, I thought he was having more fun because he would leave half day. And I'm like, why do I have to sit here till 3 o'clock? This isn't fair. So when mom would say, okay, I'm picking him up, do you want to go home? I'm like, please take me home. I don't mind. I don't want to be here. So I thought he was having more fun. But I never gauged the difference.
At any point, did you sit down and, given that you've been born into the internet age, did you sit down and do more research into Ayush's condition to understand him better or to understand his condition better at any point?
No, because in my head, it was whatever's online is not going to make sense to me. It's just a lot of text. And for me, it's better to learn looking in person, looking at the person itself and seeing the experiences. You can say someone is autistic, but what is the definition of that? It differs from person to person. Like mom said, it's a spectrum. So I can be having this full-fledged conversation, or a person having a full-fledged conversation could also be autistic, versus Ayush, who doesn't really talk that much. He only talks when he feels like it.
Did you guys at any point have some sort of support circle in terms of other people with children with autism, or brothers with autism, or sisters with autism, or whatever?
Me, no, I didn't.
So let me tell you, autism is very, very alienating. Okay? It is. It is. Even today, I can say, I don't think I'm very close to any of the parents. In fact, in the earlier years, I had parents who would tell me, sorry, but we don't want to mix with you because we don't want you to tell people that our child is autistic. You may be okay with it, but we are not.
Oh, wow.
And this is a person who's highly educated, whose husband runs one of the most well-known BPOs in India. And she's telling me this. And she had come back from the United States, and she turns around and tells me this. Don't mind, but
I remember having this
I don't want to
conversation.
socialize with you. And there were a lot of parents in those days who did not want it. And they were like, in fact, I was also told, how can you be so open about the fact that your son's autistic? I'm like, okay, he is what he is. It's not a disease. And I think very early, I think one of the the first special educator that I worked with, what I am, and I always give her credit for that, is what she set out to tell me was, Preeti, I need you to understand one thing. This is not a disease, so there's no cure for this. This is your new life. This is the way your life is going to be with Ayush and the autism journey. The faster you accept it, the better it is. If you keep chasing normalcy, what's normal for you is not normal for me or the other person, next person. I think that really set me right and on the track that we are on today. And that's why I said everything was very organic for me after that, and for Ahana and anybody else who's been associated with us. Because I feel even my parents just watching me would learn. They wouldn't ask questions, but just watch how am I doing something or what would I do. They would call me and ask me, and I would be like, just take it. If he flares up, if there's a meltdown, then we'll deal with it. But how would you treat Ahana? Try the same thing with him and then see. We might have to adapt, change, but we'll do that. It was very alienating. Actually, autism has been a very lonely journey. I lost a lot of friends around this thing. I've lost relatives. Don't have such great relationships with relatives, in fact. I wouldn't grudge them. I would just put it down to not understanding their bad luck. And I don't hold it against anybody. But, when we say we need to build a community, we need to stand by people, let me tell you, even in the autism, it's like, I've seen parents who are like, oh, he is more severe, but my son is not so. As if it's a competition. No, I mean, at the end of the day, hell, your son and my son is on the autism spectrum. Let's accept it. It's not like we're having a competition here. He'll get first prize for autism and he'll get, whatever, no prize. But that's how it is. So I believe in self-preservation. I'm very happy on my own. People come talk to me, need help. I'm always there. But
Yeah, I've seen that about you. While you're speaking about this, I also know that you're one of the parents, because I spend so much time around you, who is always available and is somebody who does not misguide people. You're always honest, you're authentic, and you make sure that you can support that person in whichever best way you can. Yeah. Coming back to you, there is a huge conversation around siblings who grow up with people with autism and how they can feel very alienated, they can feel misunderstood, they can feel they're not able to find a balance within themselves about how they are going to go through their life, whether it is their social life, it is their personal life or their professional life. Do you want to comment on that?
Well, definitely. I mean, if you talk about social and work life, it's definitely shaped around Ayush more so. And I think the initial part of, now I'm working, it's been about 3 years. So the initial part, I tried to separate the two. Be like, okay, I will have my life, you will have your life. I'm still your sister, but we will have our independent lives. And that obviously did not work out because I failed to understand that I am still an important part of Ayush's life. Whether it is just existing around him, not necessarily me doing things with him, but just existing around him is important. Which is why I had to move back from where I was and move back to Bangalore and started working. And I think now
How did that move inside you?
I mean, I did feel a little bad, of course, because I think I jumped the gun and thought, oh, I will have this whole fabulous career and outside India and we're going to have fun with it.
But just like any other young person these days, I guess.
But so I did feel a little bad, but then once I came home, I understood that was more important. Being here, being present, him being calm was more important than anything else. Because
To you?
To me, yes. Because I can be having all that fun, but in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, it's still there. You can't get it out. You can't act independently. I can't just have this life and not think about him constantly. I mean,
Do you miss it? Yes, that's a good question.
sometimes, not always, sometimes, of course, yes. Any 24-year-old, 23-year-old wants to live on their own away from their mother.
I don't think it's a 24, 23-year-old conversation, Ahana. I think all of us would wish life was different, including your mom, your dad, everybody. Like you just wish, you didn't have the trappings of stigma or be able to live in a different way, the way you wanted to live, which was kind of handed down as a, unwritten handbook to you when you got married or had a child or whatever. I think life just threw a curveball, and at some level, everyone has had to adapt to whatever has happened. And you're just living a different life. And I think that it is hard, of course, because you see your peers doing things that you would wish you could do. But it's amazing how, you have actually said that even if you were doing what you really wanted to do and nobody would have stopped you at that time, at the end of the day, you came back not for your mom or Ayush or your father, but I think you came back for yourself and your peace of mind that told you that I want to be my friend. Yeah.
That's what I think. That's what I realize about her, and I give her credit for is she got her chances because I was adamant that she goes out of Bangalore for college, and then she travels out, even if it's abroad for work, but gains that experience, so that she understands that there is a life beyond this, and then she makes her choices. I never wanted, like, I don't think we've ever said that this is your brother and you need to take care of him for life.
never happened.
Like even now it is like, no, Ahana, you need to lead your life. We are planning, we'll do whatever, however long.
And then I fight with her about.
And then we have fights like, no, but you didn't tell me this and you didn't tell me that. Why did you wait till
normal
you
thing. That's how I think. I mean, we're talking about so many complex emotions going through this family every minute of the day, every hour.
No,
of
that's
the day.
what's amazing, right?
And knowing Ayush, since I know, I want to come into what does supporting Ayush on a daily basis look like. I think it's really important for us to bring that on the table, because while we are talking all these things, and I know because we both have been part of this journey to a large extent, we understand what you're talking about. But can we make it clear to the audience what supporting somebody like Ayush means and feels like?
Do you want to go first or should I go first?
I'll go first because mine's shorter. Yours is
I think if you can just give us a snapshot of a day in the life of being with Ayush I think that'll kind of sum it
A
up.
day which is challenging.
Okay. So I'll give a little bit, then you go ahead. I think with Ayush, it's not about doing things for him or giving him what he wants. It's more about just being present and him having that calmness or that what's the word for it?
Reassurance.
Reassurance. Thank you. The reassurance that if something goes wrong, there is a person present who understands me. I don't need to speak. I don't need to elaborate, and you understand what I'm feeling, and you're able to solve my problem. That's all. Otherwise, he's very independent. He does whatever he wants. On a day that is challenging, it's more about us trying to understand what he wants before he gets frustrated, which is bound to happen. If you can't communicate what you want, anybody
That's the key.
gets irritated. So it is our responsibility or on us to understand what he wants before it gets to that point where he loses it. And it's fair that he loses it because he really tries to tell us what's wrong in his own capacity. Now, in his own capacity, he tries his best to tell us, and we don't understand it because we're also a little. It's like I'm speaking English, he's speaking something else. It goes to that.
I feel, other than, kind of like sharing the blame within that environment, I'll go back to your mom was persisting all those years with the educational model to ensure that exactly this impairment could be improvised. And unfortunately, that was not achieved, if I can put down as one of the goals, because Ayush cannot state,
That's coming to that, yeah.
I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm angry, just something very basic. I know Ayush finds it very, very difficult to state. He has what Vahini in the assessment wrote as need-based communication, and mostly around food. He's able to express himself. The spontaneity does come over there, but in any other area of his life, any other need-based area, and emotions is a hugely need-based area as well. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the capacity, which is why he's so over-anxious all the time. I mean, the anxiety that he goes through, knowing very well that the people around me do not understand what I need, is where he is, isn't it? Preeti, do you
So
want
that's where the fallout was of all this, trying all these schools and trying inclusivity, was communication got hit really badly. And Ayush's expressive communication, more than, so saying things like, I'm sad, I'm unhappy. So those are the things that really affected it. And that, I think, affected his journey so far. I wish he could communicate and he would be able to, tell us what he wants. And that's where all the frustration and all the anxiety, over-anxiousness, everything comes from, because he's always worried we will not get it. And also now he knows that Dad, Mom, and Ahana get it most of the time.
Correct.
So they are my safe zone. So any one of us who steps out of it, the anxiety starts growing.
Correct.
And then again, with Anil, it's different. With Ahana, it's different. And with me, the level is different. So he has certain restrictions for his father, for his sister, and for me. That's where the hit is.
Are the maximum restrictions with you?
Yes.
Yes.
Understandably.
So yes, I bear the brunt of it. But with Ayush, I'm going to say that on a bad day, we've touch wood had very few now. It's a whole lot of chaos, a whole lot of coffee, and definitely tequila in the evening. But it's been and a lot of restraint. You have to really practice a lot of restraint. And if there's the biggest thing that I have learned in the last 24 years or 25 years on this autism journey, I think all of us have learned, me more so, is patience. The amount of patience that is required when you're dealing with someone who is primarily non-communicative, I didn't think I had it in me. But I think we've won that battle, and he's happy at home, and he's happy most of the time. And, we take him out, we do whatever we do as a family, is because we chose patience. And we chose to give him that space
And consistency.
and consistency. And I also decided that, okay, we'll work, whatever comes through, but we have to be consistent, whether it's love, whether it's pain, whether it's anger. You're going to get
Consequences.
Yes, consequences. All's going to happen. But we're going to work on this and life skills. Get him to be as independent as possible in terms of doing things for himself.
Well, you've really done a great job with that. I know from the middle school years and so on and so forth. You put a routine for him at home. He does his own bed. He does his own clothes. I mean, it's so perfectly clean.
Well, that also
took a lot of
time.
Yes, but the persistence that she showed in ensuring that he goes through with it today
You have to be
forms
very
a great part of
consistent.
his life. Today, when you see him calm, it's because he understands. I wake up, I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I do this and I do this. Imagine if that also was not there.
So this is going back to the same thing. How is an ideal day? Even if it's a regular day for him, it takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of hypervigilance on my part, because you're all the time overthinking and trying to overreact over this thing in your head, not doing overreacting in front of him.
Yeah.
What if? So that you have everything in place, whether it is his linen, whether it's his toiletries, whether it is his clothes, everything is planned in such a way that there is no meltdown.
So, for example, there was this one day, I think mom was not keeping too well, and I think the TV stopped working.
Yeah.
So, I don't drive. I don't know how to drive. But I do have Rapido, and I have apps. I have you? Same way I can book.
See how far Ayush has come. It's high time you learn to drive, yeah? This is not fair.
Okay, but it's the population.
The point is that mom was too tired. I went to wake her up, like, mom, the TV's not working. And she was just so tired she couldn't get up. So I was like, okay, now what do we do? Come on, let's get in the auto. And now he's somebody who, when he sits in a vehicle, he needs the radio on. He needs music on. And it needs to be playing. So we jumped into the auto. And we were going, and I look up, and I see the auto driver has a small TV in the corner, and that's playing a video. Now I'm like, oh God, he wants to change the music. He'll want to do something. I said, you know what? I'll play it. Worst case scenario, we'll get out of the auto, we'll stand on the main road, I'll book another one. So I'm sitting, and he was so relaxed. He was watching the video, he was laughing. It was some Kannada video, like a small short film. He was just watching and laughing, and he was fine. But that took time to get there. Maybe 5 years ago, if he had done that, he would have told, please change the video, put cricket on, put something.
Yeah. I understand that journey bit that you're talking with Ayush. I know that these options on the table because of the rigidity that he had. And of course, we have seen that and we were working with that. So I understand what you're talking about, that it takes time. But you have to keep doing.
It's to keep reinforcing.
It's a car ride. We got a bike, so we take him on the bike. We plan
Put him in an auto.
Put him in an auto, put him in a cab. We try all kinds of things. Like, she takes him. The other day, they have a cousin who's just a year old. So they decided to go toy shopping. So she's taken him in an auto to Theobroma first for a treat. Then they walked to Hamleys to select toys for the cousin.
I made him walk on the main road to
Cross the
Hamleys,
road.
cross the road with trucks coming, and got him into a toy store. And she was nervous. She's like, if you're not confident, don't do it. So I'm like, you relax. I'm there. I'll take care of it. We're not too far from the house. So something happens, I'll get home. But he was great. Like, he walked in, and yes, of course, when you walk into a toy store, you've seen there's just so much happening.
It's very
It's
overstimulating.
very overstimulating. It was very fun. It was great.
But I will say this. That the reason why Ayush is coping, it's co-regulation, it's you. A lot of it comes from the person who is with Ayush And that gives him the confidence to navigate those complex circumstances. That gives him the confidence to say, yes, I have all of these sensory processing concerns, but I am going to put them in the back. And I am going to look forward to what I really need to look forward to.
So you have to keep trying. You can't shut the world out just because you feel that the world has shut you out. You can't do that. You have to keep pushing. And it's not just one person trying. You need everybody in that circle to try. Like when you said about his routine and him making the bed, Mom started that, but it was me sitting on his head saying, no, I'm not going to help you. You need to do it.
Yeah, because he'd do that. He'll call Anil, he'll call
Ahana, help me. Ahana, make the bed. Ahana, make the bed. I was like, no, you got to do it on your own. And I would walk off.
That's what we call speaking the same language. That's what we professionals call as speaking the same language in the environment.
On that note, I think Velan is also a bit antsy. So we'll talk about Aisha's journey from an SK perspective in our upcoming episode. Do tune in, share, subscribe, and see you in our next episode.